What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back. The Inside Wisconsin Show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson. He's got the green. I refuse to admit that it's Packers season because I just, Brewers.
Okay, good.
Brewers.
I could go switch because when I was home, I went to the pro shop and I do have a blue, the new 1923, just a little kind of lightweight like this, little lightweight hoodie if you need it.
Is that you being nice? Did you go to the pro shop or did you get it sent to your house by Brian Gutekunst?
No, I went for this particular item, I went to the pro shop.
Okay, well, it's a valid question. It's a valid question.
On occasion, I have gotten some stuff, but usually it's when I do things for them, right? Like, hey, can you do this? And then they're kind enough to kind of repay me in swag. But in this case, no. I just went in and then my son had a bucket hat, so we had a few things. It was a slow day though. Usually you go in there and you got to stand by the guy with the down marker or the gal. So this was a fairly easy transaction. So I'm not sure a lot about the jersey, but I did like the hoodie was not terrible.
'Tis the season, I guess. The Packers preseason just is slower. It just is what it is.
It is. I watched some of the other games that were just flipping on in the NFL Network. When the Packers were on with Seattle, and just like the NFL has a preseason problem. Like seriously? Nobody goes, and it used to be that like I could sell. There was only one, but I could sell a preseason ticket, not at face value, but people would take it because it was like, oh, it's my chance to go. And boy, nothing. There are more people at family night. I guess it's the fireworks, but it's just that's a spot where you think you're going to go, but they have watered down the preseason so much with the 3 games, and people have injury concerns. And then with only those couple of games, they got to look at all these guys, on the back half of the roster to see if they can play. That like people just, it is. I looked at the Cleveland game. I'm like, Cleveland, you people are supposed to be the Rabid fans too, right? And it is just, boy, they have a preseason problem for sure.
I was at both games, and people were pretty excited to see how full it was at the beginning of the game. Wow, look at this preseason. I'm like, hold your beer, because wait till after halftime. This will be half full, and it's just so interesting to see that because, like you said, there's a lot of young families, maybe with kids that come to preseason because they can't get to another game. And now they're here, but by halftime, let's be honest, we don't know who's playing anymore. And they take off, and Lambeau Field, while Packers players are on the field, sits half empty. It's just weird to see.
It is. And they still put on the full spectacle, right? Yep. And everybody, just because you don't actually know all the names on the back of the jerseys, they give you the same kind of thing. Sure, the coaches and the plays are a little more vanilla, but the other thing I would tell you is that having watched the preseason is I don't know if that team's any good.
No,
like
I'm worried about that.
Like they just like I didn't see even a hint of anything that said yes, we're a playoff team, and we have been the last couple of years. I'm just like, wow, they are really holding back.
Yeah,
or they were just in most aspects every time they just weren't very good. They were lousy. And I'm like, okay, maybe less bike riding and more practice.
Listen, Matt LaFleur does not want to give away the game plan, so much so that I don't think there was one for the preseason. And that's okay. It is what it is. No game plan. Got it. No, there was a game plan. It's just the preseason, right? Well, that's what today is.
Like, did any of it help?
I don't know that the preseason helps.
We're gonna take care of Jordan Love, okay? And boop, got hurt anyway.
Right.
So, and yet they play all these backups, right? You played Clifford a ton, Willis a ton, the other D3 guy, whatever. They play all those guys a ton, right? Nobody got hurt. None of them played all those down. Nobody got hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing to me that they put in all those backups, and there's very rarely anybody with this catastrophic ACL, Jordy Nelson kind of thing. But it is, they just didn't look rehearsed in even the slightest. And that concerns me a little bit.
Well, I believe it was the Lions that went 4-0 in the preseason and then 0-16 in the regular season. So let's just take that. We'll just say, you know what, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Good. Listen, I love your optimism always. You know that. You
Yes,
know
I do.
that. I think a lot of time it's misplaced, but I will say that honestly, I don't know that anybody shined brighter than Lucas Van Ness.
Hell, thank you. I wasn't sure when it was going to come up. I didn't have it in the beginning on my bingo card, but I definitely thought about what we were talking about today.
He looked as bad as everybody else, but cool for you. Like this is his breakthrough year, right after
This is it.
last year's breakthrough. Last year was a special teams breakthrough year.
Yeah, it was. Baby steps, John. Baby steps. All right, let's jump into this. Usually we do a Packers preview episode, but we are a little nervous because we didn't want to sway too far from the Brewers. So we went and grabbed Dennis Krause, who has just a plethora of experience here in Wisconsin covering sports. And of course, you can hear him for the last, I think, 40 years on the Packers preview, which is the Packers Radio Network pregame show. He knows the team. He's with them, and he's been doing, whether it was TMJ4 or now Spectrum News since 2006 or something like that. The guy knows Wisconsin sports. We know him. You may not recognize his face, but you definitely know his voice. So let's cover all things Packers season with a nod to a little bit of Brewers and maybe Bob Uecker as we jump into this episode of Inside Wisconsin with Wisconsin sports broadcasting legend, like that guy, Dennis Krause.
The Inside Wisconsin show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Lane's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, and North Star Mohegan Casino Resort.
Every time we bring up grilling, I always say, John, get a smoker. But last time we checked in, you don't even have a grill at this point. So where do you stand on that?
So, but I opened up the back door the other day and I realized I forgot to, so I got a fire pit.
Oh.
So I could always roast a hot dog. I have something. What I need to know from you, because we're kind of as fall hits, right? It's sort of the end of the grilling season, although sometimes it's also great, right? Because the weather's perfect to go out and do that, sit in the evening. What do you do if you tailgate? Do you have a movable grill? Like, because you have a lot of big stuff. What is your options when you actually go to the parking lot?
You're going to be surprised to hear this, but it all depends on how many people we have coming to the tailgate and how much Miller Lite is. Like, it all depends on the Miller Lite. Here's why. Let's just say we have 10 people coming. Then that cooler needs to be larger for the Miller Lite.
Sure.
Therefore, smaller Weber grill is what I grab. That little, what do you call it, Old Smoky or something. However, if it's the family of four and we're going to, let's say, a Brewers playoff game at MFAM Field this fall, okay, I will break down our flat top griddle. I'll break it down. I will pack it in a way that it fits in our car, that the cooler Miller Lite can be a part of it. And when we get there, let's just say it's a 105 or a 305 first pitch, we will make breakfast on the Blackstone in the parking lot of whether it's AmFam Field, and I've done it at Lambeau too.
So the smaller the group, the larger the grill. You see where that might be inversely proportional.
It's because it's
I understand
it's dependent on the Miller Lite.
Yeah, and I understand the boys can't contribute to the Miller Lite thing.
Yeah, no,
but if there's 10, so by the way, here's how I judge if it's a big cooler. Okay, one, you got to be able to put like a case of beer in it. But two is if the top doesn't have one of those kind of literally kind of embedded or embossed into the top. If you don't have a ruler on there on top of the to measure how big the fish is, then it's not a big cooler. That's how you. The cooler has to be where you're like, oh, look, I can lay down my lake trout and go, yeah, there you go. That one we can keep. That's when you have an appropriately sized cooler full of Miller Lite, is if you can measure a fish on it.
Me and the Miller Lite in the parking lot are friends too, and we have an agreement. It's almost every single game I do this. I go, all right, I'm going to pack 6 beers for the tailgate, put them in the cooler, and then maybe I'll stop drinking once we get in the game.
So that's your portion. That's your portion. Got it. Okay, good.
3 hours. Yeah.
That's responsible. That's all I'm saying. That's your portion.
It's my portion. All right. So then I get into the game and I see the 24-ounce gold can. And I'm like, well, we should probably have one of those. And then they turn into pocket beers. And then we went to Stadium View after the game and watched a band and had 16. And yeah, Miller Lite. Just that's what makes the world go round.
You're saying if the company ever goes under, it ain't you.
It's Miller Lite.
Don't peg it on you. You are not. You are driving stock prices. You are not detracting from them.
No, I at one point in my career, I was called a market share when it came to Miller Lite.
Thank you. There you go. You're a great
You're
American.
welcome.
We appreciate
Miller
you.
Lite. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/inside Wisconsin's to find options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Cheers to 50 years of Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. You know his voice from the Packers radio network since 1987, I think, but you recognize his face from Spectrum News and TMJ4. We'll cover it all. That's Dennis Krause on the Inside Wisconsin show. Dennis, thanks for coming on, man.
Great to be with you guys.
It's always good when you have several outlets, which means you know what you're doing and you have value, and people keep picking you up and wanting no matter what platform or what outlet you have, as long as you keep having the knowledge, people find places for you. So here's the knowledge I need to know.
That. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I'm a big fan through the years at ESPN. You did great work.
Well, I managed to stay afloat, which is also something in this business. So last year when we did the preview, the question, and especially in the NFL today, right, it's a quarterback league that's over here. So the Packers have one. Last year my question was like, how good can Jordan Love be? And this year I come in and it's more like, what is Jordan Love, right? I thought they had moved on with that contract. Like, we really trust you, which I still think they do at that price. But given his performance last year, the injuries, again, what do I think of Jordan Love going into this season? Because I don't know I'm as optimistic as I was a year ago.
Well, I think that's fair. I think that we were all really swayed by the second half of the season 2 years ago, and we thought, oh, this is the answer. It's going to fit right in with the Favre, Rodgers, Bart Starr, legacy of Packers quarterbacks. And then last year happened, and I think your questions are questions that a lot of people are asking, and I don't think they're out of line. Who is Jordan Love? We know the Packers rewarded him with a great contract. We know that he played fantastic down the stretch a couple seasons ago, including the playoff game, the victory in Texas over the Cowboys, but I don't know who he is. I wouldn't put him in the top tier at this point. It's premature. So we have to see what he is this year. And guys, I think that the two most important Packers this coming season would be Jordan Love and Keyshawn Nixon. I understand why the Packers moved on from Jair Alexander. He was expensive. He missed a lot of games with injuries. But in that division with the receivers that are there, you better have a secondary that can cover them.
Mm-hmm. How important is Lucas Van Ness? I'm just going to get this out of the way now, because I thought he was going to have a breakout year last year, to the point where I may have been on record saying that he was potentially the most important player outside of Jordan Love, because if he does have the breakout season that we think he's going to have, our defense is different. Please, Dennis, tell me it's this year.
This has been a topic that obviously exasperates John.
A little bit.
I'm hoping. I just hope the guy makes the roster.
Oh, no.
Well, he'll make the roster. He'll
Okay,
make the roster. And a case could be made that if they want to get where they think they can get, he has to produce. I mean, he can't be a bust. He has to be a guy who gets double-digit sacks. I mean, where they drafted him, I think that's the expectation. And he's at a great camp. But you know what? We all know camps don't mean anything. Get to the regular season, and we'll see how effective he is.
So here's the bad part. I don't have anything against Lucas Van Ness. Like, I think he's probably a good kid. I like Iowa guys, the whole thing. It's just this Trevor's misplaced talent evaluation is now makes me seem like I'm this Lucas Van Ness hater, and I'm not. Like, I want him to be good and be in his corner. I just, Trev has him as, Reggie White, and I'm like, I would settle for, Eldon Roche.
Holiday.
I'll take Eldon Roche or Clarence Big Cat Williams, something a little more serviceable than that. I feel like if they're going to be good, not just on the corner, but I feel like the defense and super improved a year ago under Hafley. I feel like if they're going to be any good, this has to be a defensive ball club. I don't know how you where you are on that, but I think given what Jordan Love is, and we like Josh Jacobs, everybody loves the receivers, but kind of like Lucas Van Ness, so I'm waiting for a big producer there. I don't know. I feel like if this team's going to go anywhere, I feel like it's got to be a defensive ball clubs.
I don't think you're wrong. I think the formula for the Packers has changed. I mean, they can't be in a position where they're having to outscore people, 42-35 every week. They have to rely, in my opinion, on defense, special teams, and Josh Jacobs running the ball. And that takes pressure off of Jordan Love, and so that he doesn't have to be the best quarterback in the league for you to win. So to your point about defense, year 2 under Jeff Hafley, what's it going to look like? I think they unlocked some things late in the season and even in the playoff loss to the Eagles that hopefully they can use moving forward. But, I go back to Alexander, and I understand. I do understand, because it was always will he play, will he not play? It was a weekly dilemma and drama that they didn't need. But when he played and when he was healthy, he was very good. And Keyshawn Nixon, I love the guy. I hope it works out. But he's going to be under the gun because teams are going to throw at him early and see what he has.
So you've been on the Packers Radio Network for a long time, Dennis, and we'll cover some of that. How much, though, when you do that show, the 2 hours and 3 hours before a game, do you really get into what I would call opinion on that? I know there's a lot of questions, James Jones, Wes Hodkiewicz, Mike Heller, yourself, but how often do you get into true game analysis versus just letting everybody know what's going to happen that day?
Well, I think my role is more of a traffic cop and that pregame show. And you mentioned the guys that I kind of try to distribute to. Look, James Jones has forgotten more football than I know. So I'm not sure that the Packers Radio Network is interested in my opinion when I can get James Jones to weigh in on something who's much more qualified. I will say this too, guys, having done both a postgame show and a pregame show for the Packers, pregame show is much better because I used to host a postgame show when the Packers weren't very good, and I used to call it Suicide Hotline because, it was fans near death, coaches had to be fired, players had to be replaced, and we all know it's not that simple in the NFL. So those are some rough times. I much prefer the pregame show because you can look ahead and isolate some matchups that might be telling in the game rather than react if they lost, heaven forbid, because, all bets are off.
Yeah, because when you started, there were a lot of those shows when they come through. No, I wonder, so, Trev and I also, another kind of running joke we have is nothing happened in Trevor's life before 1983 because he was born in 1983, so literally nothing happened in his life. I don't know if he is spoiled of the Packers he knew, or I am scarred because of the Packers I grew up with, right? Like there's two distinct generations. Yep. I'm not asking you to choose a side on who's right here, but do you think, though, to some degree, that the expectations we have for the Packers it's just so different from those of us that grew up in the 70s and early 80s to what it is now?
I think crazy. Absolutely. My kids were born in 92 and 93, and all they've known is the Packers winning and being a Super Bowl contender. And like you, John, there was a long time between Bart Starr and Brett Favre, okay? That was a quarter of a century, and we lived through it. So I have some of that scar tissue too. And so for me, I appreciate their success. I once figured out, because I've been around so long, that I've covered, if you include the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Wisconsin football, Wisconsin basketball, Marquette basketball, I've covered over 200 seasons. Of those 200, there have been three championships, 2 Packers Super Bowl wins, and the Bucks championship in 2021. So that is kind of the odds. We go into every season thinking they're going to win it all. They rarely do.
Do you think the Packers, being the young team that they are, catches up with them this season? I know the last 2 years, they're the youngest team in football. And then last year, 2 years in a row. I think it's the third year in a row they're the youngest team. At what point does that become, like we said, one of those contending teams that flips the script?
I understand why being the youngest team was attractive to tout for a while, but I'm sick of hearing it, quite honestly, because often it is used by people, and I'm not saying the Packers use it this way, but some fans use it as an excuse. And I'm tired of it. You chose that roster. You chose to be the youngest for those times. So don't act like it was thrust upon you. Those are choices you made, roster decisions you made. In their heart of hearts, I don't think the Packers want to be the youngest team anymore. They want to be the Super Bowl champions, and that's not necessarily one and the same. And I think Brian Gutekunst, he kind of walked some of it back because he realized how it looked in print. But I think some of the things he said right after the season about, this team needs to contend, needs to translate the regular season success into the playoffs, I think all of that was spot on. I mean, I think Packers fans are ready for them to go deep in the playoffs rather than talk about being the youngest team.
So, you still have experience. You're going to be young. All these guys have played. Who needs to be better? Josh Jacobs is a given. McKinney both seem to be really good. Love for sure. But if you were going to pick a guy out there, and Lucas Van Ness is off the board because he's just perennial. Like who out there you're like, okay, and you mentioned Keyshawn Nixon's going to get work, but like who just needs to be better? Like here's a guy that we need. If the Packers are going to play well, that guy needs to be improved.
The guy that comes to mind is Kenny Clark. Not that he was terrible. Not that he was terrible, but I think he had some injury issues last year that he gamely fought through. But I think that if you can get heat on the quarterback, as you guys know, from the defensive line, rather than have to blitz and expose your secondary, that's preferable. And I think Kenny Clark is a guy who can do that when he's healthy and right and freed up to do so rather than worrying about who's on his right or left.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think –
I'm sorry. Even if he doesn't get there, right? Like when he's taking up two guys, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yep.
Even if you're like he's one of those guys, as long as you're doing something down there, it doesn't even have to register as tackles or sacks. Like when he's really good, yes, he gets the quarterback, but he just takes up people. He occupies guys, which is sometimes gets lost on interior linemen.
A couple of other guys that I'd throw at you are from the linebacker core. I think Quay Walker, who the Packers did not pick up his fifth-year option. So that was a pretty strong message to him that, okay, we're not saying you're not part of our long-term plan. We just want to see more. So clearly they're wanting more from him. And we have a tendency, I'm including myself in this, to think that a player's ascent is just it's steady and there's not going to be dips. Edgerrin Cooper tantalized us last year to the point where we just expect him to be great and be a star. And he may be. But what if he plateaus, or what if he takes a step back this year? Then that linebacker core is in trouble because I think it's based in the Hafley defense on the linebackers being athletic, quick, covering end-to-end, and you need Cooper to be productive to do that.
I worry that Cooper he's in the Jordan Love spot. He did so much good stuff at the end of the year. You're like, okay, now he's that guy. Easier from that position, I think, than quarterback. But I think he's a little bit in that position, and both with what his performance was and what expectations are now, I think that there's a lot of similarities between his end of the season, what he showed, and Love from the year before.
Yeah, I agree. I think no one's saying that these guys can't do it. I mean, if the Packers are going to succeed, they're going to do it. Jordan Love, I admire for many reasons, how he's handled the pressure of being the Packers quarterback, how he's, really kept a steady ship. And I think the teammates love him and respect him. So all of the ingredients are there. So we want to see a healthy Jordan Love for a 17-game regular season and into the playoffs and, Lord willing, to the Super Bowl. We want to see what he can do.
We'll put a button on the Jordan Love conversation before we take our first break. It's no short of coverage that he's been 3 years, right? This is his third year, and this is supposed to be the breakout season because that's what Rodgers had after 3 years. If you think back, though, to the time that you've covered the Packers, can you compare Favre and Rodgers and Love? Are there similarities that you would be led to believe, actually, this is the guy? Holy crap, we did this 3 times in a row.
It's a great question. I think they're not only are they different people, they're different quarterbacks. And I don't mean that as a cop-out, but Yeah, you're right. I covered Favre when, he was on the brink of being benched. It wasn't all, an upward ascent for him that there were no black patches. And Mike Holmgren came very close to benching him for Mark Brunell. Didn't, and the Favre legend grew. I think when you look at the legacy of quarterbacks, that can be a burden. Favre and Rodgers, Rodgers is still playing, but he'll go in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There's no question about it. So for Jordan Love to have to step into those shoes directly or indirectly, that's a difficult proposition. And I've always said that the Packers head coach and quarterback might be the two most famous people in Wisconsin and the two most scrutinized, more than the governor or senators or the mayors of major cities, whatever you want to say, because their performance is out there for everyone to see, and everyone, including me, thinks they can do a better job than those guys on certain days. So it's tough to be in those positions. But you know what? He got a good contract to play that position, and now he knows better than anybody. Now is the time to produce.
All right, more Packers chat, and I want to get into your career, Dennis, too. You've been around the block a little bit. We'll do all that next. Stay here, the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Lane's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, and North Star Mohegan Casino Resort.
Time for another top 5 list here on the Inside Wisconsin Show, and usually John has some sort of quiz or something set up, and I don't want to say it surprises me because we do this on purpose, but today the ball's in my court, and I don't know if this happens to you, John, but if I have a new number that falls across me, I attempt to remember said number by the jersey number of my favorite Packers or Brewers or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
So
got it. Yep.
In Packers fandom, I was curious to know if we did a 5 random number set, which number and which player you refer to that number. Meaning, like, let's just say number 10 comes up, right?
Sure.
I would say Jordan Love. Who would you say?
Fred.
Fred who?
Fred. Just Fred from SportsCenter, number 10, Fred.
Okay.
Did you never get that?
No, what is that?
Well, let's get through this, and then I'll explain the number 10 Fred.
Okay.
Maybe that could be John Wisconsin, and we'll hold the audience. But, when you say number 10, all I ever think of is Fred.
Fred McGriff?
Oh, just Fred.
Right. Okay,
Fred
we'll get to it, I guess.
Fred,
all right.
The late
random number generator number 1.
Okay.
Number 32.
Jim Brown.
Okay.
Does it have to be a Packer?
Yeah, it has to be a Packer.
Oh, my gosh.
Number 32. Who comes to your mind? I have one right away.
Who do you got?
Travis Jervey.
See, all I know is Travis Jervey was fast and he was from the Citadel. But I wouldn't.
I don't know why I remember that, but yeah, Travis Jervey. So no number 32 for you in Packers world?
It has to be Jim Brown. That's all I can think of.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
What was Paul Ott Carruth? 33?
Who?
Paul Ott Carruth. Oh my gosh. Okay, go ahead. That's fine. Okay. And I'm going to be the dumb guy here, but you go ahead.
No, you're not. All right, next one.
Listening.
91. This is number 4. 91.
That's not even a real number. Again, you need to have real numbers.
Why isn't that a real number?
Because there's nobody that jumps out at me.
For me, it was Vonnie Holliday.
Okay.
I think he's the all-time Packers sack leader in one game. I was at that game, 5 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah. So see, there's Vonnie. He's one of those guys that I get caught in the middle of when he was, he's not my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
He is not back since when I have had to cover the team more. He's great.
So there's this.
I'm trying to think. What was Sean Jones's number?
96.
Was he 96? Okay.
Right off the top of my head, I'd be surprised.
Maybe that's it. Reggie, some of those, but yeah. So he was
96. Oh.
Good for you when he comes through. But I would have struggled to come up with him. Even though he was a great player, but that's okay. Keep going. I thought you were going to give me the whole number so I could remember it. Like if you did 2 in a row.
We go. Well, let's do this. Out of curiosity for 91, what about number 9? Who comes to your name for number 9?
Did Jim McMahon wear number 9?
He did. That's exactly who popped into my head.
Yeah.
I was curious to know how many of these we shared.
Probably. There's probably a few.
And now, what about number one?
Oh wow! I can't even. It's completely.
I have no number one. I have no number one.
No, there is. I don't know that there's been a number one. Has there?
Boy, I don't know.
Oh wow!
Packers number one.
Earl
Curly Lambeau.
That's it. Okay.
That's it.
Yep.
All right. Here's the next number. 71.
I mean, what? You're just linemanning me to death?
I maybe so. I'm literally clicking this random number generator on the Google. Here's a number. All right, number 80.
James Lofton. That's not even close.
I think Donald Driver.
Don't say Donald Driver. It's not. They're not even the same class of guy.
That makes sense.
One guy was a Hall of Famer. One guy was really good and has a lot of numbers, but he's not James Lofton.
Okay, we'll do two more. Number 18 just popped up.
That's terrible, but that's Randy Wright.
That's Randall Cobb. That's great. This is what I was hoping would happen.
Here's another one. One was good and one was not.
Well,
right
now to sign with the Jets.
I'm trying to go with this. I have found your generator, so I'm trying to go make sure I have the numbers right, so I'm not completely an idiot. But
all right.
Wait,
number 30.
I have to see if Randy Wright's even on here. I thought he was Randy Wright, and it's not. Wow.
I got to be honest. I didn't think this game was going to stump you.
Now I remember Randy Vataha played for a year. He was great with the Patriots in the 70s. He had a cup of coffee with us. Jim Zorn, Mike Tomczak, Doug Peterson, Carlisle Peterson. That was bad, yeah. And now Malik Heath. But I could have sworn. Now I got to figure out what number Randy Wright was. Maybe he was 16.
All right. Here's the next one that popped up. You can tell.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Randy Wright was number 16. So my apologies to Randall Cobb. Oh my goodness, that's unfortunate for him.
All right, this is the random generator. I know this is going to be number 36.
I thought you were going to have your random generator was going to be like 138. I'm like, okay,
max number 99.
So
36 is Leroy Butler, right?
36 is Leroy, and then Nick Collins. But yeah, Leroy.
Mm-hmm. What about 26?
Do you have a thing to look it up? Because 26 to me is obvious.
Okay, the player that came to my head was Craig Newsome. No.
He wasn't 26.
No, not Craig Newsome. I'm thinking about the backfield. Packers 26 number. Who do you have?
Connecticut's own Eric Torkelson.
Right.
Go look at him. He had a good run.
So we got
is he
Darnell
there?
Savage.
Yep.
Didn't make the list. Not on my end. Not on my end anyway. Here, let's see if the Packers.com have him listed. I don't see him there either. Herb Adderley, Darnell Savage, Corey Ballantyne, Micah Robinson.
Okay. So my mind is there he is. Eric Torkelson from 74 to 81.
Well, that's probably why the Google was like, we don't.
Wow. And then that number then went to Tim Lewis, who was terrific, right? We love Tim Lewis, was a great number one pick out of Pitt. He's the one that's Louis Riddick's cousin. Charlie Pepra was a nice name. You remember him?
Boy, dude. Charlie Pepra.
There's some guys in there, yeah. But Eric Torkelson wore it. Eric Torkelson might have, outside of Herb Adderley, worn that number more than anybody else.
All right, last one.
All right.
Number 55.
55 was it? Jim Carter was 50, right?
What number was George Kuntz? Was he 55?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he was. I don't think. Maybe if you went back,
53. Yeah, 55 is a tough one.
Because what number was? Come on, the linebacker, number one pick, Oregon State, played there for a long time. Played on some. He was a good player on some bad teams, and then on some good ones.
What time frame?
80s. Might have played on the second Super Bowl team, the Holmgren champs. or maybe
Packers who wore number 55 was
How
here we
about
go
Jim-
from
about
96 to 2001 was Bernardo Harris. Is that what
No.
you're thinking of?
no, but
No.
he was a smart guy. I'm thinking, how about if we go with Jim Flanagan, Sturgeon Bay's finest. He owns he used to own-
67 to 70, 1967 to 1970.
Yeah,
Yep.
he used to own the Sand Bay Beach Resort, where we had a cabin for a while up north, up there in
north.
Door County. Yeah, and then his son played with the Packers too. I think briefly. He played mostly Jim with the Bears. His son played, but yeah, Jim. Wow, like I've known that. I remember Mr. Flanagan from 100 years ago. That's again shows how old I am, Mr. Flanagan.
Zadarius Smith wore it as well, 55. Bernardo
That's back when he was
Harris.
happy.
Yeah, he was not so happy.
Nick. The guy's name was Nick. Nick Barnett. What number was Nick Barnett? Right? When
56.
Okay, so I'm
56,
off by
I think.
one. Okay. So here's the thing. Here's what we should take from this, Trevor, is that I would not be able to get home by calling anybody. The numbers were in there. Okay, so if you had 8036, I could remember that, find it 494 Lofton Leroy. But if it was 7191, I was just going to be stuck wherever I was.
When you go to Las Vegas, they have these little safes in the closet. And I always create a 4-digit code thinking about numbers. And I'm always fearful that I'm going to forget who that was when I get back at whatever wee hours in the morning it is in Las Vegas.
Yeah, mine is, boy, if you solve mine, then you can not only get into my in-room safe, but you can pretty much have my entire life. They're always like, you should always have different numbers with random letters and 7 characters. And I'm like, well, and look, clearly I can't get 7191. So if you had to add if you had to add an ampersand or an asterisk or something like that, forget it. I would never be. You talk about I'd not only be lost, I'd be broke. Couldn't get into my ATM. I'd be terrible. So I hate this game.
All right. Well, I tried.
We want you to do a whole lot more than just save money. We want your money to grow, just like your dreams. We want you to achieve financial well-being and the feelings that go along with that. Capital Credit Union, doing the right thing.
We're back, the Inside Wisconsin Show. Trevor John and Dennis Krause, Spectrum News, Sports, TMJ, Packers Radio Network. Let's dive into that a little bit. You came back to Wisconsin in 1987. You grew up here, Hartford, right? Went to Peoria, Illinois for a second. And then you came back to Wisconsin, and you've been here since. How do you recap the career that you've had over the last 40-plus years in sports, and especially here in Wisconsin?
Better than I deserve, I guess is the way I put it. And you guys know this is a very competitive business, and a lot of people, I think, could do what I do. But I've been lucky, and I've had those opportunities. 3 years in Peoria. I met my wife there, worked there from 84 to 87, went to UW Oshkosh before that. And as you mentioned, grew up in Hartford. So I grew up a fan of these teams. And when I came back from WMBD in Peoria to WTMJ in Milwaukee, I knew the history of these teams because I had lived it. It wasn't like I had to cram for an exam. I just instinctually knew the history of these teams. And I think that's been a great advantage as I've moved forward. And there have been changes. I don't work at TMJ anymore, Channel 4. I don't work for the Bucks anymore. But through the changes, the constant has been that I've enjoyed what I'm doing. I think the audience feels they're going to get not a cheerleader and not a critic necessarily, but just the fairness. I guess that's what I would want to be known for.
I'm trying to think. Did Charlie Steiner at Peoria's Bradley, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Steiner
is the old double nickel there as I drive back from Green Bay to Columbia in the old Dixie truck stop, which is right there in the old Bloomington Normal Peoria Metroplex that goes around.
Charlie Steiner's given a lot to Bradley in their radio TV program. He was at Bradley long before I worked in Peoria.
Sure.
I worked in Peoria under a guy who's actually still calling Bradley basketball, Dave Snell, and he was fantastic to me. But that was a great market for me to learn at in 84 to 87 because you had minor league hockey, the Peoria Rivermen, who won the Turner Cup while I was there. You had the Peoria Chiefs baseball team, which when I got there was an Angels Class A team. Joe Madden was the manager. And then it turned into a Cubs farm team. And so I did, I saw like the start of the careers of Greg Maddux and Mark Grace and Rafael Palmeiro and those guys. They all went through Peoria while I was there. And it was a fantastic sports town to learn at. You mentioned Bradley, Illinois State, huge rivalry, heated rivalry. You had Illinois. You had some Cubs fans. You had some Cardinals fans. You had some White Sox fans. So I think when I talk about fairness, I think that had a lot to do with it because you have to try to cater to 3 sets of different, fans on a weeknight in the summer, and you better show all of their highlights, and you better have the same level of enthusiasm for all 3 of them. So I think it's where I learned a lot about being fair. And the other thing I learned in Peoria, and this is no small thing, I did a lot of radio there, and summer nights in Peoria, sometimes you didn't have a call and you have a half-hour show and you're on the air live. And so you better be able to ad lib and keep something going in between the commercials. And it was wonderful training experience.
When was Hersey Hawkins?
Hersey Hawkins was while I was there. In fact, Hersey was, to this day, the only athlete that has ever called me because he knew I was leaving for Milwaukee. He called me on the phone and said, "Hey, thanks for the coverage. Thanks for the way that," and I've seen him through the years, when he was in the NBA as a player and as an executive, just a class act.
Trev, do you know who Hersey Hawkins is?
I don't, but I was smiling like I did. Yeah.
I didn't even know. I can't even, you probably don't know who Rich Heron is or Asha from Okay, we're going to move on because Trevor's it's out of his depth. I do know, all I know is the place is famous for every time that they do something, they go like, will it play in Peoria? You know, it doesn't matter if it's on Broadway or LA, like, will it play in Peoria? Because it's right there in the middle. But
the Bradley basketball coach when I got there was Dick Versace, and he was replaced by Stan Albeck. So those are some great years to be in Peoria.
And
I do know who the
great afros, great gray afros from back in the day when they came through.
Something that I cannot grow these days.
Me and you both.
I tell that as I teach now some of these kids that think, okay, I will go to journalism school and then I will go cover the Super Bowl. And it's the value of covering a rodeo, the value of trying to find a high school football score, who to call. I always say that when I was in Oklahoma, there was a great place in Kellyville, Oklahoma, that you literally called the Dairy Queen and asked the guy who was like in the second window because he could see the scoreboard. Right. But like those are really, and talking about when there's no caller, like the value of all that to me is invaluable, that if you don't have to go through some of that.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, I can remember in Peoria talking to janitors at schools trying to get the score. Yeah. And another trick, and I'll let the audience in on this, is we would sometimes shoot at high school basketball games, just a couple baskets. And then we'd show the highlights. Couldn't for the life of me find the final score. So you say something like, at last report, so-and-so led by 2. Well, it was 2-0, but, you were factually correct, but that's all you had.
Yeah, there are a lot of things. The other one we always had is there's never a halftime score. You're always in the third quarter. Makes it sound like it's updated. Because if it's 22-10 at the half, it's going to be 22-10 when we start the third. So there's a lot of little tricks of the trade that you go through to make it sound like way more than you do when it comes through. So you talked kind of about the background of all those, and then you talked about your championships. But I've always thought, okay, ultimate prize. But listen, Badger Rose Bowls are phenomenal. Those Bucks teams with Nelly during the 90s. It's not like you had to cover some arid desert of sports coverage, right? There were a lot of really kind of fun, meaningful things that you must have covered that weren't just the Packers Lombardi trophies or that Bucks O'Brien trophy. What sticks out?
Right. Nelly was a little bit before my time because by the time I got to Channel 4 in Milwaukee, it was 1987. It was the summer of 87. Okay. He had just departed the Bucks, so he was still doing his Nelly's Farm Fund, where he drove a tractor through the state of Wisconsin. So I had a little experience with Don Nelson, but not much. It was Del Harris when I started. But to your point about success, Yeah, I did cover that first Badgers Rose Bowl, which was amazing considering what they had been. Marquette basketball in the Sweet 16. I remember going to St. Petersburg, Florida, and seeing them knock off Kentucky. Kevin O'Neill was the coach at that time. So there have been a lot of good times through the years. I didn't mean to paint it like it's been a desert. There have been. What I was trying to designate, though, is there's a difference between being competitive and being in the playoffs and winning a championship. And I think fans, rightfully so, want a championship every year, and life usually doesn't work that way.
So I've asked John this question, and I know that you are all journalists by trade and by education, but at the end of the day, you grew up a Wisconsin kid, and you're a Wisconsin sports fan. So you moved back here in '87 with all these memories from your childhood about watching Wisconsin sports. John was doing some sort of recap on SportsCenter after a Packers win or a Brewers win or whatever it was, and I texted him in the middle because he loves that when he's on TV. I'm just shooting him a text, right? Like, hey, I know you're not working right now. But I ask you the same thing, Dennis. How do you do it? How do you delineate between your, what I would call Wisconsin boyhood, and your job covering Wisconsin sports that your boyhood grew up with inspiring your job? What is that like?
I think to stay in it for a while, you have to separate the two. And it's not as hard as you might think, because, for example, when you cover a Packers game in Green Bay, I'm not cheering in the press box and thinking about how they won Super Bowls 1 and 2 under Vince Lombardi. I'm there to report on what I see that day, okay, not what happened in 1966 or 1967. I think to survive in this business, you need a little bit of skepticism, because otherwise you're just a flowery fan that, what's the difference between you and a fan that thinks they're going to win it every year? Well, they're not going to win it every year. That's breaking news to some, I know, but the team that you follow is not going to win it every year. So how do you handle that? And I think for me, it hasn't been that hard. And this sounds incredibly selfish, and I've said it before, but John can relate, I'm sure. Some of what you look at, you think about how it's going to affect me. Okay. If the Packers go to the Super Bowl, it's a great story. I love it, but it's a lot of work, and you're going to be away from home. And those are the types of things you start to think about more than, oh gosh, this is the same team I grew up in Hartford watching.
Yeah. Amen to that. That's the first. The other part, and I've tried to explain to this Pete right now, and I think I've gotten to Trevor. Like this Brewer team is really good, and they could win the World Series, and I would be ecstatic. But that wouldn't make them my favorite Brewer team, right? That's the 78, 79, 80 guys when Bamberger came, because that's when they became good. And I think some of that is, one, adulting, period, but two is because of the job we do. At some point, the score is just the score, and you have to divorce yourself from it. And so I don't, even though I want the Brewers to win and I know those guys and I follow them, it's just not the same connection you have that when you're 12 and you bring your glove to a game. And it's hard to explain to people sometimes like that, right? My boy Homer True is killing me about that all the time. Well, they have to be your favorite team. They won. No, actually they don't. Just like Ron Dane doesn't have to be my favorite Badger. Billy Merrick has to be my favorite Badger, right? There's a difference between one guy who won the Heisman and the other guy, by the way, who probably should have, because he had better stats than Archie Griffin in that whole period. He just played for a team that wasn't Ohio State when it comes through. But I digress when it comes to that. When you were a kid and you grew up, which of those teams was your team? Did you have one that you preferred? Because the Packers were in a kind of a lean period. The Bucks were pretty darn good. The Brewers kind of came into their own there for a while.
I'd say I was a big fan of all three of those, and also of Marquette basketball. My oldest brother went to Marquette from 69 to 73. And so obviously Al McGuire was there, and they were very successful. They won the 1970 NIT. So growing up, those were the teams that I gravitated more to. Yeah, I listened to Badger football, and I I know about Rufus Roadrunner Ferguson and all that stuff, but I didn't go to Madison.
Right.
I had a son who went to Madison, but that wasn't part of my blood. My blood was Packers, Brewers, Bucks, and Marquette basketball.
What was John Anderson like as a television guy in Milwaukee? Because he cost me a job there once.
We can't hire John Anderson. There's one here. I love John Anderson. Love him as a person. Covered his career. And this is a story I just thought of, is because when I was at UW Oshkosh, I did a story on John Anderson, the Packers linebacker. And Lee Remmel was the Packers PR guy. Rest in peace. Loved Lee. This is how times have changed. So that at the time they had an indoor facility, but it wasn't called the Hudson Center at that time. It was just the barn, whatever. I mean, they went in there for practice when it got cold. I had to do a stand-up for the John Anderson story. Lee Remmel gave me the keys to the place. Said, here, just lock it up when you leave. You would not get that kind of service today.
I tell Kurt, he gave me for a school project, he gave me a copy of the Ice Bowl film, of which there were only like 3. And he's like, here, like, do I have to check it out or pay? Like, no, just bring it back. And I'm like, okay. So, and I've told Trevor this, I'll tell you, because you will laugh, because I hope you'll appreciate this. So I applied for a job in Milwaukee, and the guy calls back, goes, we actually have a John Anderson here. Would you consider changing your name? Not uncommon in television, right? It wasn't an outlandish guy. And I thought I was funny, and I said, sure, how about Bart Starr? And the guy never called me back. And nothing. Apparently, he had no sense of humor, or he didn't really know the Packers, whoever this news director was. But anyway, so I never got to work.
Well, when I started as a DJ back when radio stations had DJs at WNAM and Neenah Menasha.
The Twin Cities.
And Krause was way too ethnic. So I was Denny King.
There you go.
Denny King. So Packers aside for just a moment, we're coming off of an incredible weekend for the Milwaukee Brewers and remembering Bob Uecker at their game on Sunday. You've worked in Milwaukee your entire career, Dennis. Tell us about your relationship with Bob over the years.
The first thing that comes to my mind is that there was a game in, I want to say 2010, that Corey Provis couldn't do. And I filled in. I actually did a game with Bob Uecker. And to watch him work and how relaxed he was and how easy he made it look, I will always remember that experience. They played the New York Mets, and it was just amazing for me to be in the booth with him. I grew up listening to him, interviewed him several times. I would never pass myself off as a close friend, but his staying power was incredible. And the last time I talked to him was Memorial Day of last year. He was sitting in a golf cart. He was at a Brewers game. He was going to call later that day. And I had a chance just to say to him, I just want you to know, I mean, it's incredibly inspiring what you're doing. He was calling Major League Baseball at age 90. I mean, that's hard to do. And he was doing it well. And so to me, he deserves every bit of recognition he gets, because to last as long as he did at such a high level is incredible.
I was going to go back and wrap up the Packers, but there's no need to do that. I feel like, as my dad would say, this is a good place to drop our voice. And it was amazing to me to see the national outpouring for Bob Uecker. And I know he did, Monday Night Baseball and Mr. Delder, but how literally people across baseball, you could argue he was the most famous guy left in baseball. And I come back to all of this, and I've said it to Trevor before, I'll say to you, the thing about Uecker, what made him amazing, is he had this national profile, whether it was Johnny Carson, he did all this stuff. But every year, kind of like the Swallows return, he came back to Milwaukee, right? Like in the end, he was always ours. And that was the thing that, for all the fame he had, like, you never once thought, okay, we're only subletting him. He came back and he was ours. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And,
that very well said. And I when I tell this story, I don't mean it to be self-serving. I mean it to show you how I feel about Bob Uecker. One of the times that I won a state sportscaster of the year award from the NS, whatever it's called now, in North Carolina, National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. That same year, Bob Uecker went into their Hall of Fame. Well, he was doing Brewers baseball, so he sent a videotaped message. And on that videotaped message, he mentioned me and congratulating me, and I saved that. I got that DVD because for Bob Uecker to even know who I was impressive, and I will always thank him for that.
The state of Wisconsin, yeah. The state of Wisconsin definitely knows who you are, Dennis. You can catch Dennis Krause statewide on the Green Bay Packers radio network the entire season. Packers preview 2 hours before, correct?
Correct.
I say all that because I grew up running the board with you and your voice at WBEV in Beaver Dam. My first job in radio was to come up to Beaver Dam and run the board for the Packers games. And I know exactly what you mean about that post-game show because there was times when it ran 3+ hours and I had to sit and listen to all of that, literally the entire thing.
I didn't know you were from Beaver Dam, which was in the same conference as Hartford, the Little 10 conference.
Here we go.
And when we would drive up north, which is what everybody does in Wisconsin, we would stop at the McDonald's in Beaver Dam, and that was always a big treat.
So I'm not from Beaver Dam, but boy, do I have a story to wrap up the conversation with you. I worked in high school. John, this will not surprise you. I worked in high school. I was in Johnson Creek, Wisconsin, right? But I drove up after practice or whatever I had going on for school to do the Brewers games at night with Bob Uecker, and then obviously on Sunday with you along with the Packers radio network. After every single shift, and I'm not making this up, I stopped at that very McDonald's and I ordered a 20-piece chicken nugget, a large fry, and a large chocolate shake. And I had that puppy cooked by the time I got back to Johnson Creek. So I was doing everything I could to put weight on to play high school basketball, and it didn't work. I was 6'8", 200 pounds soaking wet my senior year. It didn't matter. That's funny.
I don't know how I fit in this other than I actually grew up in Green Bay proper, but I worked at the McDonald's in Ashwaubenon. So I don't know exactly
full circle
where that goes, but I feel like I'm tangentially related to this story.
Dennis, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping on Inside Wisconsin, talking about your career and also the upcoming Packer seasons. Real quick, do you do predictions in your job? Do you say this is where I think they're going to end up?
Sometimes. I guess I would loosely say like 11-6. I think they're a good team. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl team. I hope they prove me wrong, but that would be my prediction.
I like it. We appreciate you, man.
I want to know what that 11-6 is in the NFC North. I don't think it's the Lions, but I think it could be better than the Bears and the Vikings.
Yeah, I think, there's so much excitement about the Bears. And
for about the third year in a row, by the way.
In full disclosure, my feelings about the Bears are what you would expect them to be. I'll leave it at that. I think for them to jump up to a wild card berth would be a big step forward for them. As far as winning the division, people talk about Detroit taking a step back because they've lost both of their coordinators. They still got a ton of talent. Mm-hmm. I mean, they still got a ton of talent. So I would go with Detroit to win it, Packers second, the Bears third. I'm not sleeping on Minnesota because they have a ton of talent. So maybe I'm saying right now last place, but I don't know that I believe that because I think if McCarthy turns out to be okay even, they're going to be good.
The Inside Wisconsin show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Lanes Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, and North Star Mohegan Casino Resort.
I think what I love most about Lambeau is all the different places you can sit and that there's not a bad seat in the house. So how many rows up are your tickets? Remind me, please.
Oh, we are 11.
11 rows up.
11. And when I started my kid's seat, I think I told you, my kid's seat was in row 1. And then when it turned to an adult ticket, I was on the very top row.
Yeah.
Which was before they put up the luxury boxes and everything else. So I've had row 1 and then I had row 54 or whatever. And now I'm in row 11.
And it's a good seat, but it's the corner of the end zone. So do you agree that there's no bad seat in the house? And I'm going somewhere with this in the south end zone?
No, I think any football, any stadium that is built exclusively for football, there's advantages to most every seat in the house. It's when they made these multi-purpose donuts, they had to play baseball in it and everything else, that it became troublesome.
And now, what about those seats in the far south end zones, though, the way up? Have you sat up there or been up there anyway?
I've been up there, yeah. But it's, it's okay. Listen, if you want the ideal viewing spot, it's on your couch in HD.
Well,
right. But if you're at the game, no, I think everything's good.
I have been I've been blessed to be able to sit in a lot of different spots inside Lambeau Field, as have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the Festival Foods MVP deck.
Yep.
I also love the Miller Lite end zone where I sat this last time, but I could not get there without walking past the Festival Foods MVP deck. Festival Foods, by the way, the official grocery and tailgating headquarters of the Green Bay Packers. There's that pound of potato salad staring me in the face again. We've done this before. I appreciate what Festival Foods does with the Packers. Here's why. There are so many things that they're involved with, whether it's a free 12-pack of beer, if the Packers score this many when you buy a case, right? There's always on the back of the tickets, or at least somewhere within the spectrum now that's not on the app. There's no hard tickets. The Festival Foods MVP deck, the official grocery and tailgating headquarters of the Packers. Personally, I cannot think of the Green Bay Packers without talking about Festival Foods because they're just massively married. My buddy Mark Scogan, I've been up and sitting with him. It doesn't matter where you look. Festival Foods is involved with the Green Bay Packers. So when you're going to tailgate at Lambeau this season, stop by Festival Foods. I'm going to send you a pound of that potato salad, I think, just because I really want I'll put it in the little cooler with the ice and the frozen. We'll make it get there.
So I'm just going to add this. Okay. Because of your friend Mark, Festival Foods. And congratulations, Green Bay Rockers, Northwoods League champions that Mark owns. So big win there. A couple of wins over Wausau, and then they took care of Traverse City, and then a nice 8th inning rally to tie Duluth, and then a win in the 9th. So in addition to being tied with the Packers, we should also tie them into Capital Credit Union Park and the Northwoods League champions again, second time in 3 years. For Mark's squad.
Love it. Congrats to those guys. Very cool. You were back for that, and I know that obviously Colin worked there when he was doing an internship, but you went to Wausau for a playoff game. Is that right?
Yeah, I went to both. I was at both Wausau games, and what was really crazy is there was a young man here who graduated from Missouri, and he texted me and he said, "Mr. Anderson, I have an offer in Wausau. Can I talk to you real quick about Wausau?" And I sent him a picture. I'm like, oddly enough, 2 days ago, here I am. I can tell you about the baseball park.
Yeah. What do you want to know? That's awesome.
Yeah. So there you go.
Bestfoods.com/Packers for all the info when you're tailgating. Shop Festival Foods. It's weird that I'm more nervous right now about the Brewers season than I am the Packer season, even though I know the Packer season is coming. I'm not used to the idea of maybe having 2 good professional sports teams in the fall. I think it's kind of neat.
Just settle. It's okay. It's okay. Like the Brewers have some 9th inning concerns right now, but just, let it go. Here's the thing you got to remember. You don't have any control. So just sit and watch. If you're sitting in that chair and they win, doesn't mean if you sit there tomorrow, they'll win. And if you sit in that chair and they give up a 3-run bomb in the 9th and lose, doesn't mean you got to switch seats.
But you can concur with this. When you live here in Green Bay or the Green Bay area, it's just different, right? I mean, I grew up in Southeast Wisconsin. I was, 40 minutes away from County Stadium. So I did not live and die by sports then. Maybe it has something to do with what I do and you do for a living. But living here, when the Packers aren't what people believe they should be, it affects normal day life.
I get, like I said, I think that goes to where you and I have this difference of success versus scar tissue. That is now the expectation. Yeah, and now I grew up in the post 60s, right? The Super Bowl glow, when Devine went to the won the division, went to the playoffs in 1972 when they lost in Washington. And that's when the Dolphins completed their perfect season. And maybe I was too young to remember 7 or 8. I remember all the games distinctly because, gosh, when you're 7, who doesn't? But I don't remember the town wasn't as, while they liked the success, I don't remember everything being as tied to the psyche of the town like you're talking to. And I think that's relatively, I say new. It's 35 years old with the Favre and that success, I think did bring that. I do think maybe there is some of that I literally did not live through a lot of stuff. I brag all the time, but I don't think that I lived through it in that regard. Now, and that didn't mean the Packers weren't important, didn't mean they drive everything, but there wasn't this noticeable pall on Mondays if they lost. Sure. There wasn't this, as you said, constant oh my gosh, they should win. We got to do better. So I will give you that I don't know that I've had to live through that like you did, but and maybe that's something I like to do. I always joke with a very good friend of mine who's a giant Phillies fan. His name's Judson Birch, worked at ESPN for 100 years. Judson's gift, his superpower is that you can name any game the Phillies have played in his lifetime, any game, and he'll tell you who the home plate umpire was.
What?
Okay. Judson and I, we started a umpire fantasy league that we had for a while. Saying Tim Kirkshin said, "This is the single dumbest thing I've ever been involved in." I love it. So you pick 6 umpires, you had a draft, and then at the end of the year, whoever had the most ejections from those umps, you won the league. So it was the umpire fantasy. My team was the Blue Man Group, and I remember drafting this. I guess is my John Wisconsin from UConn, but it was I drafted Marvin Hudson, who turned out to be a pacifist. It was awful. But they'd have these big, somebody'd have a fight or whatever. And the first thing was like, who got thrown out and who was the home plate umpire to see who got, Angel Hernandez was always the first pick because he was lousy and you knew he was going to throw out 9 guys who pitched on balls and strikes. So you always had with that happen. And if you go back to listen to some old sports centers, you literally, when guys got thrown out, we just announced whose team had picked up who picked up the win. And,
no way.
Yeah, and then we had the big draft. I can still remember Tim Kirkshin. He brought his son, who's now in the media, but he brought his son with him because his son was all excited. And Tim literally, because he got that voice, and he's like, "This is the single dumbest thing I've ever been a part of, and I love it. It's the best." Like I went to the night they had the bobblehead bobblehead doll in Grand Chute down at the Timber Rattlers.
Yeah.
And so I was down on the field beforehand. So my nephew was a good ball player, so could take BP, and I was shagging. Anyway, so now the umps come, the minor league umps, and they're like, "Do you guys really have an umpire fantasy?" Like, yeah. And so I had this guy. I would email him every month the standings in the umpire fantasy. Like,
oh my gosh!
Yeah, I have to go look. It's still in my Rolodex and my day planner. So it was a big thing when we did that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but that's how demented everybody is when you're there and you do it for a living.
So we'll wrap this episode with our predictions. Why don't you go first?
Oh man, you got to put that on me, huh?
I'll go first. Here's
look.
what I got. Okay,
I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do this really. Wow. So Lions at home, first game. Do they win? Probably not.
They have to. I think they if
short week against the Commanders, do they win?
Well, I have the overall
By the way,
record.
This is literally Mike and the Mad Dog style. This is how they would do this. Right. My favorite is also they do it for all 162 Yankee games, and they'd go, I don't know, coming out of that All-Star break, I think they win 2 out of 3 against the Expos.
All right, so I have 2 wins to start the season. Let's do this. Keep going.
Wow, you're bold. Okay, they're going to split those.
All right.
Then what? Is it Cleveland?
You looking at it?
How about we just go home and away? Lions, Commanders, they split. Bengals, I think they can win at home. Panthers, they should win. Eagles is a loss. Vikings and Bears, they'll split, and they can't beat the Ravens. Cleveland, yes. They got to go to Dallas, and they'll be pissed. Cardinals, they could win. Like, I think I look at that. Giants, Broncos are really good. Like, that's a killer schedule. Like,
Browns, Cowboys.
Honestly, this feels like if they can be 9-8, that'd be a boost. That's I think that's a 9-8 squad right now. From what they showed in the preseason, what they showed last year.
Yeah, so I had 9-8 in my head too, but I didn't think I could say that publicly, so I went 13-4.
That's quite a jump.
But that's what I feel like, because I don't think there's any happy medium with this team. So I either think they're going to be a 13-4, win the division shocker, or we're going to have a lot of hard conversations. Like, I remember Ed Policy saying that he's not offering renewals for Goody or for Matt LaFleur, and he doesn't like lame duck seasons. So the pressure on this team from the top down is massive. That's why I said it's either 9-8, and things really change, or it's 13-4 and we all go, okay, we're gonna be okay.
I think it's 9-8. They keep their job, but only they get another year on it, and not 2 or 3. But like, you just look at that, you'd think, okay, Cleveland and the Panthers, those are the 2 teams they can beat straight away. Tell me a game on there that's not maybe the Giants, because they're gonna be dart by then. Everything else is either they're not as good as, or a straight toss-up. Steelers, Commanders, toss-ups. Bengals,
I was going to say, if there's a game on the schedule, though, where you would think they would have the W away, it's Pittsburgh.
Why?
Just because of the whole thing. Just because of the whole thing. That, and I don't have any reason to believe why the Steelers are just going to be all of a sudden this incredible football team just because they have Rodgers.
But they've been above 500. They went to the playoffs last year, even though they kind of fizzled out. They've been a pretty good team under Mike Tomlin for a long, long time.
But there's also chatter that they thought they were going to move on from him too. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think that Jordan Love is the quarterback that the Packers believe him to be. I think that we can really surprise some people, and that's what this team feels like. Let's be real, John. There's not a lot of confidence in the Green Bay Packers right now, and I think they like that.
Well, but I think it's warranted. And I just look, every one of these games, it's a toss-up. I'm going to take out Cleveland and take out the Giants, but both those are on the road. That makes it super hard, right? And then I'm going to take out the Panthers, because at least they get them at home. Everything else, you got to deal with a quarterback that could drive them nuts. Kyler Murray is hit or miss, but he can drive you nuts. You don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be teed up for that thing, whether he's good or bad? That's a quarterback that could. Broncos, I don't think Bo Nix is okay. I'm not as sold as other guys, but he's out there that could do some damage. Like, they're dealing with some things, right? That and maybe they still should kick the crap out of the Bears. But like, if they can go 3-3 in the division, which I think would be ambitious,
a win, yeah, it would.
But then you got them going 10-1 the rest of the way.
There is a brutal stretch of this season, and it is between November 23rd and what I would say December 20th. It's Vikings, Lions, Bears, at Denver, back home against the Bears. Or I'm sorry, at the Bears.
And then the Ravens, right? And then the Ravens after that.
And Ravens, and then the Vikings. That's a little, I don't know if I like that whole stack them up in the NFC North thing at the end of the year.
I do. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to have the division come down playing division teams? That's fantastic.
Perfect for the NFL, but if the Packers are a little banged up at that point, I don't like their odds. And so I kind of preferred to have those spread out throughout the schedule to give us the best chance over the years. But I understand why the NFL did it. Pile them at the end of the year and just rake in the money.
Very good chance that the other teams will also be banged up at the end of the year, right? The end of the year is the same for every team. It's not just the Packers' end of the year.
You know, I think the most important player might be this year on the Packers.
Do I really want to hear this from you?
You might hang up on me. Don't hang up on me.
Who do you got?
If Jordan Love gets injured, Malik Willis looks really good. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. I'm just saying.
No.
There's a good plan B.
He was the first. He was the first half MVP of that team.
Yeah.
They don't make the playoffs without that guy.
Right.
But I also think there's a reason, aside from money, that remember when he got here, it was like we just literally traded for a bag of nickels. And then he's shown some. What I don't like is that so far is his success came when his best success came when LaFleur was really good game planning, right? The Colts, he just ran it like crazy. Then because the Colts then we go to Tennessee, and then he stacked the whole thing, and everybody's like, oh, they're just going to run it. And then he outsmarted him because he threw it some. I think you still have to be really careful with what you give Malik Willis. I don't think you can give him not the whole playbook, but I think you got to be really smart in how you game plan. By the way, that Tennessee game that they won, didn't you have some catastrophic injury? You couldn't go for that. What was that one?
Yeah, that was the Achilles. That was the Achilles injury. Yeah. This year we're going to Dallas. It's the makeup game from last season. We're going to the Cowboys game this year. So
enjoy Jerry World.
I will be careful. All right, as you were, Wisconsin, go Pack, go, and don't forget about the Brewers. We'll see you next time.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Lanes Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, and North Star Mohegan Casino Resort.
Remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.
Shut up and sit down.